So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this webinar on how to use GMAT Sentence Correction by using the meaning-based approach. My name is Rajat Sedana. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT, and I'm going to be your co-host today. Your main host today would be Shraddha, who's one of GMAT Club's top experts. In fact, she's one of the top 5 experts on GMAT Club, and this is top 5 out of about 400 experts who are rated on GMAT Club, and she's going to help you learn that meaning-based approach that we pioneered a decade back, and we are now in the 3rd generation of that approach. Now, Shraddha is going to solve some really difficult questions by applying that approach, and those difficult questions do use some grammar concepts. So to make sure that you're well prepared for that, we did send a few video lessons your way. They are on the top left-hand corner. Now, if you've gone through these lessons, perfect. You're very well prepared for this webinar. If you've not gone through these lessons, then they are a part of your free trial, and you can just log into your e-GMAT account and you should be able to access these lessons. We also have some upcoming free webinars. We have first of all a webinar with one of our former students, Sankalp, who's a former UCLA Anderson graduate, and he's now a product manager at Microsoft. So if you want to understand how do you build a compelling application, if you want to understand how do you build that path towards a product management degree, this is one webinar or one session that you should attend. This again, a lot of our students are doing these for e-GMATers. They like to give back, and this is one of the ways in which they give back. If you click on this, you can see some of the other sessions that are there as well. So I mean, regardless of whether you're someone who's coming from a legal or a commerce background and wants to pivot to tech, or whether you're coming from a CF background and you want to go into private equity, as you go to this, look at RMB analytical page, you're going to see those career transformation webinars over there. We also have some upcoming free webinars. We have a free webinar on number properties that is tomorrow. In this webinar, we focus on just one topic, that is remainder, and we go from the very basics to the most advanced questions using the remainder equation. So if in general, number properties is an issue for you, if divisibility and remainders is an issue for you, you can click on this register now button and register for this webinar. And then a week from now, we have a webinar on GMAT reading comprehension that's co-hosted by Shraddha again. And in this webinar, we prove to you that to ace GMAT RC, you don't need to be a voracious reader. To ace GMAT RC, you do not need to follow tricks. As long as you follow some core reading strategies, you'd be able to solve each and every question that the test throws at you. And that's a week from now. And RC is one of the easiest sections to ace on the GMAT. So that's, I think, from that standpoint, it's a webinar. If RC has been bothering you, attend this webinar. You're going to see that RC ability go up. Okay. With that, I have about 180 odd students here in the webinar. Let's kind of get to know you guys a bit better. I want to know, when do you guys plan to take the test? I also want to know, what is your target GMAT score? Let's get the second poll over here. Let's make sure it's laid out neatly. So when do you plan to take the test? About 35% of you, or about 70 of you, have not taken a date as of yet. Another 25% are in that 45 or more days bracket. So you have more than a month and a half, which gives you enough time to make upwards of 100-point score improvement. And then we have about 40% of the class that's either in the next, planning to take the test in the next 15 days, or 16 to 30, or 31 to 45. It's a very nice increasing order of participants here. Also, with regards to the target GMAT score, that 730 to 750 bracket is where majority of you are in. It's about 60% of this group over here. And then we have a fairly significant number of folks in the 710, 720. So if you look at these two segments, that's about 80% of the class, and 11% is in the 770 or higher, and then about 8% is in the 02 to 700 or 600 to 700 bracket. With that, let me go right into the presentation pod, where so you actually see this, that the screen will have changed for you. And right now you'll be seeing a presentation pod along with a Q&A or a question and answer pod here. So there's essentially 3 parts of this webinar. In the first part, I'm going to talk a bit about how you get to that that 730, 720 or higher score. I'm going to give you guys a push towards that score. So that's going to be the first part of the webinar over here. In the second part, Shraddha will take over. That's going to be the core of this webinar. It's going to be about 120 minutes or about 2 hours, where she's going to talk about that meaning-based approach. She's going to make sure that that you guys learn that approach. And then in the third part, if you have questions that have not been answered, we'd address those questions in that third part of the webinar. Okay. With that, let's start with this first part over here. And essentially, for many of you, this is your first interaction with e-GMAT. So I'm going to tell you a bit about e-GMAT, and I understand that very many different ways of learning, and so I want to make sure that you understand how we go about helping you succeed, and how is it different from the other methods that you see out there. So when you think about architectures of learning, and at e-GMAT, we're very big on learning architectures, feedback, personalization. These are things that, when we started this company, this was the foundation of e-GMAT, and we've continued with that foundation since then. So when you think about learning architectures, you predominantly will see two different learning architectures that exist in the GMAT prep world today. One is what I call as the book-based architecture, which means that, hey, it's designed around how you learn from a book. And the second is a private tutoring-based architecture, which again has more aspects of personalization. There's a lot more feedback involved over there. When you look at most of the online courses out there, they have audiovisual instruction, they have practice questions, but the predominant learning architecture is this book-based architecture. When you map e-GMAT and a couple of the other new companies, what you're going to find is that they're built on a completely different learning architecture, and that's built a lot more closer to the private tutoring-based architecture. So how does that architecture make a difference? How does it help you get to that 720 or higher score, which about 80% of you are planning to get to? Let's kind of talk about that briefly. Okay. So when you think about just one of the first things you need to do when you want to use the GMAT, it's about creating your own study plan. And to do that, when you create your study plan, you've got to do a few things. You've got to figure out, based on your strengths, based on your weaknesses, what's the path that you need to take that to get to that 720 or higher score. We're going to take 720 as an example here. Then whatever content you need to learn that content, and just knowing that content isn't enough. You need to learn how to apply that content as well, and which is what Shraddha would do in about another 5 minutes or so. She'll teach you how to apply these concepts, and then again, 720 plus is a 95th percentile or higher. So you need to get so good at applying those concepts that you attain a level of mastery that's superior to about 95% of the test-taking population. So let's see how do you go about doing that, and we're going to take a case study of a student who wants to go from a score of 600 to that score of 720. Okay, so if you want to build that personalized study plan, it's you can do this in 3 easy steps, and especially if you're an e-GMAT student. The first is you've got to quantify where you stand today. A lot of people focus on just worrying about their quant and verbal scores, but you've got to go a level deeper. You've got to get your starting abilities within various subsections of verbal as well as quant. So this is where you get your starting abilities, and it tells you how good you are in SC, CR, number properties, word problems, and so on and so forth. So it gives you a really solid starting point. Then you have to define what's the best path for you to get to that 720. Why do you need to figure out the best path? Because it turns out achieving a 75th percentile in SC is very different from achieving a 90th percentile in SC. It requires very different amount of effort. The likelihood of someone going to one score versus the other depends on what their starting score is. So having the right set of milestones could make a huge difference when it comes to the likelihood of attaining those milestones. And we know this because we've delivered more success than anyone else has out there. And when I say anyone else, just anyone. You can compare us to anyone, you're going to see that. And then once you do those milestones, and the next step is to figure out, what do you need to learn? Or do you even need to learn anything? Or do you need to focus on practicing questions and doing strategic review? And depending on what those starting abilities are, this answer is different for every subsection within the GMAT. For each individual. In some subsections, you may actually have to start from the very basics. In others, you may just need to focus on practicing questions. So how do you quantify your starting abilities? How do you get to that first step? That's you actually take a sigma x mock, and when you do that, you actually, it's the world's only mock that gives you ESR plus analysis. That gives you those starting abilities out there. Now, once you have those starting abilities, how do you define those target milestones? To do that, you actually look at a tool that we built about 2 years ago called Personalized Study Planner. You put those milestones in there, the starting abilities in there. It looks at about 20 plus combinations and gives you the most optimized set of milestones over there. So this is actually an AI-driven utility that can help you get to that study plan. And what it does is it takes your starting score, and this is a starting score of 600. It takes in your quant and verbal scores, it takes in your starting abilities, it then defines a target quant and verbal score to get to that to your target score, and then it also defines the target abilities that you should attain in subsections of quant and subsections of verbal, and then once you have that, it looks at your starting abilities, which is, you can see these on the left hand side. This came right from your sigma x mock, and then it defines those target abilities. And based on how much effort you're going to put in, it tells you how much time you need per subsection. Okay, so again, you can see this piece over here. And once you have that, you have a clear idea of how much time you need to spend, how much effort you need to put in, and then in the next step, it also tells you where you need to put in that effort. Do you need to start from the very basics? Do you need to focus on learning application? Do you need to focus on practicing questions? And then it creates a day-by-day plan for you. Again, this depends on how much time you're going to spend over here. Okay. For those of you who are e-GMAT students, you guys should already have their plans. For those of you who are not, we do give out a few slots, through which you can actually create a personalized study plan. You engage with one of our level 1 experts, and you can book a slot and get that personalized study plan or so. How realistic is a day-by-day plan? That's a great question. It depends on how diligent you are with regards to putting in the effort that you were really saying. And if you put in the effort, it turns out to be actually pretty realistic. If you don't put in the effort, of course, you don't do that. And again, when you do so much personalization, you also have to deliver more success. And when you look at the kind of success that you've delivered, and compare that success to what's delivered by other prep companies, you're going to find, whether you compare us over the last 5 years, 5 months, or 5 weeks, we've delivered more success. So here you see the number of reviews, and these are verified reviews, which means they've been verified using an official score report. You can see the number of verified reviews for us versus some of the other prep companies, and this is again reviews submitted on GMAT Club. In fact, when you even combine the reviews for us with compare the reviews of us with the combined set of reviews for all the other prep companies, the major ones, you'd find we still have more reviews. So that's, since 2016. A lot of people say, okay, that's since 2016. What about recent times? So even when you look at the last 5 months of data, and you look at just the 700 plus scores, and you look at data from 1st of Jan to 31st of May, you'd find that there are about 190, 700 plus scores that have been reported on GMAT Club. Out of that, 150 have been reported by GC partners or GMAT Club partners, and again, the other 40 have been because of self-prep. And this is reported either on Share GMAT Experience or on the review section. And so these are the GMAT Club partners for which these scores have been reported. So when you divide these 150 scores over here that have been reported for these partners, and again, right now, this and this are the same company. That's why I say 11 and not 12. What you're going to find is that it's not, the distribution is very disproportionate. So we've accounted for upwards of 45% of those reviews. So e-GMAT and target test together account for about 111 out of those 150 reviews, and the remaining 39 reviews actually are distributed amongst the rest of the partners. So on an average, we've accounted for 10 times as many 700 plus scores than any of these guys individually has. In fact, none of these guys individually has accounted for more than 10 700 plus scores. So then how about the last 5 weeks, essentially, which is, you look at this period over here, and when you look at this, again, the story is very, very similar. This is, again, just the 700 plus scores reported on GMAT Club over here. Okay. And in fact, in June, you'd see that there are we account for about 65% of all 700 plus scores. And when you report so many 700 plus scores, you should have those journeys as well. And here are some of the journeys that you can see on our YouTube channel. As I said earlier, our students give back as well. So we invite a bunch of our students uh, every week to talk about how they achieve that success, and you can watch these success stories on our YouTube channel, whether you want to look at GMAT success stories, B school experiences, or in general subscribe to the channel itself. It's the world's largest collection of GMAT success stories and NMB experiences. And you can also connect with me on my LinkedIn. We post about 5 articles every week on LinkedIn. So if you want to stay updated with the MBA world, if you want to stay updated with what's going on in the GMAT prep space, or so, you can connect with me on my LinkedIn as well. Okay, with that, I'm now going to invite Shraddha to start with the subject matter portion of this webinar, and so let's get started. Shraddha, over.
Thank you, Rajat. Hello, everyone. Before I begin, I just want to do a quick sound check. So please let me know if you guys can hear me clearly by putting your response in the poll that you see on your screen. Can you hear me clearly? Answers trickling in. Okay, so there is no audio issues from my end. That's good. I still see some people saying no, probably they'll have to log back in, but most of you can hear me. Okay. With that, let's begin this session. My name is Shraddha Jaiswal. I'm a senior verbal SME at e-GMAT, and we are going to solve 4 official questions in this session. Now, before I show you the first question, which is an official question, I would first activate the poll for the same, and I'm just changing the orientation of the screen a little bit. I've got the YouTube links down. I've gotten the poll up. Can I just ask all of you to click on still solving so that I know how many of you are participating in this question? I have about 220 participants in here. Let us at least get to 120. And these polls and the questions that I ask and the polls that we activate is the only way for you to ensure the two-way communication, because I would be the one who would be talking for most of the session until I hand it over to Rajat, of course. But yes, so a few more responses, please. If I get a few more responses from you, then I will show you the first question of this session. Anybody else? I'm getting responses for A and other answer choices. Could you just come down to still solving? So here you go. First question. Yes, you did see that the first slide mentioned that you're going to get 90 seconds to solve this question, but really I'm not going to time you. I don't want you to put you under the pressure of timing. That's why we ask people to click on still solving. You guys are setting the pace of this session, right? So as soon as I see that 80% of the class is done answering this question, that's when the discussion begins, okay? So take your time, solve this question the way you would solve any other SC question, and I'll see you once you're done with this one. All the best. All right, majority of you are done answering this question. Those who are still working on it, could I request you to make your decision now so that we could move on and get into the discussion of this question? Giving you last 10 seconds to put in your responses. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, I'm going to end the poll here now. Still see 6 people at still solving. Do you just want to make a choice and finish this one off? Yes, no? All right. Okay. So I ended the poll here. Let's move on. So generally, when students read this question, this is their general approach towards the question. They read the sentence, then they read the answer choices, and they find out this split that's going on in the sentence. What's the split? A and B do not have by, but C, D, and E have by. So they make this decision that, okay, I found the splits. It's A, B versus C, D, and E. And then they go back into the sentence again and they see that, okay, we have less by government regulation. So we do need by after than as well. So A and B are out straight away. And then among C, D, and E, generally people say, okay, C does not look very neat. We don't say things like the coming to an end of, not a very elegant answer choice, as Rajat likes to call it. And then, so C is out of the question also. Now between D and E, E seems very, very neat. It looks very neat. It reads well. Yes, this is how we talk and this is how we write. So mostly people go with choice E, and that's it. Their selection is that. And if I were to show you your responses for this question, you can see that 44% of you actually landed up choice E. But as you can see on the screen already, the result is incorrect. E is not the correct answer for this question. Okay, so what happened here? All right, before I get into the question, let me just give you a little background here. This is an official question, advanced official guide. Question number is on the screen. By the way, OG identifies this question as a grammar-based question, doesn't even identify this as a meaning-based question. But we are going to show you that how we can actually solve this question by purely applying the meaning-based approach. Okay, and one thing is this is one takeaway that you should write it down somewhere, which is very, very important for your preparation, is that difficult questions cannot be solved by using the splits method, because in difficult questions the play is more on the logic and not so much on grammar. Okay, so splits method most of the times would not work. They won't work. But today we are going to show you a unified method of solving each and every SC question, irrespective of its difficulty level, irrespective of the portion of the underline in the sentence. Okay, so what would we do? What we do is that we first break the sentence down into smaller chunks. And why do we do so? We do so because it is easier to handle all the information in the sentence bit by bit. If I am to read a sentence which has more than 40 words in one go, I'm not going to get head and tail of it. I'm just not going to understand anything. This is what we call information overload. We are not equipped to handle information in this fashion. But the moment I break the sentence down, there are actually two merits of doing so. The first merit is that I can see the structure of the sentence. I can go from one block of information to another, and as I read on, I can assimilate all that meaning. So breaking the sentence down into smaller chunks helps me understanding the meaning that is conveyed by this sentence. The second merit is that I actually can understand what's going on grammatically in this sentence. See, the picture is very clear. I have less by government regulation and then than the coming to an end. And I know that the sentence is talking about two factors that has influenced the overall slackening of growth in productivity. The first factor is government regulation. By the way, the sentence is saying that it is less by government regulation than the coming to an end of a period of rapid growth in agricultural productivity. So the second factor has been more influential in slackening the growth in productivity and what is it being compared to with government regulation? Both have been there, but the second factor has been more influential. And by the way, the sentence presents some extra information about government regulation. By the way, this government regulation could be significant for some specific industries. However, it is not the prime factor in slackening the growth in productivity. So when I have broken this sentence, the meaning of the sentence becomes clearer because I'm using I'm dealing with one chunk at a time, and I'm assimilating the meaning as I go on. And what you see on the screen as aspects are nothing but just the gist of this sentence. The sentence begins by talking about the slackening of growth in productivity. Then it presents the two factors, and then we understand that actually there is a comparison between these two factors. So the first factor is it's not slackened so much by government regulation, but it has been slackened by the coming to an end of a period of rapid growth in agriculture. So far, I have not looked at all into the grammar of the sentence. All I have done so far is I have broken this sentence down into pieces, and I've tried to understand what is the story that the author wants to convey through this sentence. That's how I like to call it. Every sentence in SC is a story in itself. Okay, so if I take you back to my previous slide, here you see that a very small portion of sentence is underlined, the coming to an end of. Okay, so either you understand the usage of this phrase or you don't understand the usage of this phrase in the context of this sentence. It's actually that simple, if I may say so. But that is really not the case, because that is what the test taker has played on. You know, do we understand the usage of this particular phrase in the context of the sentence? So let me do exactly the same. Try to understand how did you interpret this part here? And let me get my poll very quickly. Here, I've gotten my poll. Here you go. Now, how did you interpret coming to an end? Okay, how did you interpret? Not that you're thinking about it now and you're making your selection. What I want you to do is select that answer choice that you interpreted while answering this question. The first is the period is slowly drawing to an end, the action of ending the period or the end of the period. I have quick votes coming in. All right, 5 seconds and I'm going to close this poll. I've gotten my responses here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so ending the poll here. And if I broadcast the result, 94% of you said that the coming to an end of means the period is slowly drawing to an end. And that indeed is the meaning of this particular phrase. And here I have a little illustration for you to, okay, what's going on? Okay, so here, let's take a look at the okay, let's take a look at these simple examples that I have for you to explain what's going on. When we say the period is slowly drawing to an end, it means that the period is slowly winding up. If I were to say this with this woolly mammoth that you see on your screen, if with that example we say that the woolly mammoth became extinct by the coming to the end of the ice age, that means ice age did not end up abruptly at one point in time. It started coming to an end, it started winding up, and woolly mammoth started getting extinct with that winding up of the time. So if A, B, C, and D are different points in times, we see that by the time we hit the point D, there are no more woolly mammoths. So they became extinct. The extinction started probably somewhat after the point A, and then by the time it hit the point D, there were no woolly mammoths. So that's gradual extinction, or the gradual going away of the woolly mammoth with the ice age coming to an end. Then we are talking about the action of ending the period. If I were to put this in the same example, we are saying that the woolly mammoth became extinct by ending the ice age. Now, the way this phrase is written here, it appears as if either the woolly mammoth ended the ice age or somebody else ended the ice age. Now, does that make sense? Well, not at all. Nobody can really end an age. So we are not, it doesn't make sense. Let's talk about the end of the period. When we say the woolly mammoth became extinct by the end of the ice age, yes, at time D, you will see no woolly mammoths. But what this expression lacks is that sense of slowly coming to an end, that gradual progression towards coming to an end. That sense is missing in C, which we see in choice A. Slowly drawing to an end. It's, from 10 to 9 to 8 to 7 to 6 like this, that gradual progression in the decline, that sense is missing in choice, in option C. And that's what you see in the sentence as well. Now, why have I taken these three expressions? I've taken these three expressions because the official sentence actually has these three expressions, okay, across different answer choices. And if I were to show you that, see, the coming to an end of, which was our option A, which most of you went with. Then we have the ending of, or by ending. Let's talk about C, D, and E. In C, we have the coming to an end of. In B, we have by ending, which was our second example, and then by the end of. Okay, so that's why we took those three examples to understand what's going on. Now, if I were to, now that I understand that what these three expressions mean, I look at this part of the sentence and I try to understand what the sentence is saying. It is saying that the slackening of growth in productivity is influenced by the coming to an end of a period of rapid growth in agricultural productivity. That means this period that the sentence is talking about did not come to end abruptly at one point in time. It's talking about what influenced is slowly drawing to the end of the period of rapid growth in agriculture. Okay, this is very, very important, and this meaning makes sense. It absolutely makes sense that, okay, there was a slow drawing towards going to the end, and that's what affected the slackening of growth. Fits perfectly in the context of the sentence. So if we are to check just the logical bits in the sentence, we see that our original sentence presents all those logical points very, very clearly. The only problem with, now that we've understood the sentence, we can talk about the grammar. The only problem with choice A is that it lacks that by, which most of you identified. Okay. Now that you understand the meaning of the coming to an end, and if I give you another opportunity to attempt this question, okay, and let me bring the question back on. Let me see which answer choice would you pick. Now I've opened the poll. Oh, sorry, I closed the poll actually. Now here I've opened the poll. Now make your decision. Now that you understand the meaning of this sentence, the meaning of the underlined portion, what would be your choice? Answers coming in. All right, last 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. I'm going to end the poll here. I don't need to say anything more. Just compare the results of the 2 attempts that you guys did. Once you hear there is no grammar involved, I did not talk about any grammar. You identified the grammar yourself, that then has to be followed by. All I had to do is take your attention towards the meaning conveyed by the coming to an end. Not that I did a great job of explanation here. Just a few examples. I just teased, I just led you. I just forced you to think about the meaning conveyed by this, this phrase, and you were ready to change your answers. Look at that drastic change, like 44% for E in your first attempt and 86% for C in your second attempt. And yes, indeed, it is choice C. That is the correct answer. And now it makes sense why OG calls it a grammar-based sentence. Why? Because they think, hey, you do understand the meaning of the coming to an end of. All you need to do is plug in a by after than and just get over with this question. No need to spend all that time in here, right? So this is what we've done. That's all we need to do. We've understood. I told you we already understood the grammar part of it. A and B were strictly out. We understood that choice C is the one that is actually keeping the meaning intact of that slowly coming to an end of a particular period. How choice D distorts the meaning? This is very close to our woolly mammoth becoming extinct by ending the ice age. The way by ending has been used, it seems to suggest that somebody ended the period, or maybe the overall slackening of growth is influenced by ending. It itself did that work, which is absolutely illogical. Okay, so before I go to choice E, I just want to bring this point home. And this is going to be the main theme throughout this session, is that can you understand the purpose of the sentence, or can you understand the intended meaning or the intended logic of the sentence? It is very, very important that you get to this part. And then second part would be, can you present it in the correct form? So this is your logic part, and this is the grammar part. So grammar is just a tool to present the logic. So first focus on the logic and then focus on the grammar. Okay? So the first thing that you do is you look at the sentence, you try to understand what is the meaning that is being conveyed here, and then you figure out, okay, this is the grammar I need to present that idea. And that's the point of every conversation, or every communication rather, right? You write something, you speak something because you want to put forward an idea, and that idea has to be logical, The only time we talk about illogical ideas are when we are explaining our dreams, maybe, or when we are cracking a joke, maybe just that time. But in our daily conversations, communications rather, it's always the logic that needs to be put forward, and we use grammar in any language just as a tool to put forward that logical idea. Taking a look at choice E uses by the end of, looks very elegant, looks very sleek. That's what you went with in your first attempt. But once you understood the meaning of the sentence, you decide, hey, yes, I know you look very neat, but you are changing the meaning. I'm not going with you. So you changed your answer choice to C, which is absolutely correct answer. Okay. So once again, let's keep this thing in mind. Whatever method we used so far, nobody probably told you this before. SE is not about grammar. It's about understanding the logic. I told you every SE question presents a story, and you need to understand that story. And the best part about it is that all the information that you need to understand that story is right in there in the context of the sentence. There are no loose ends to it. You don't need to bring in your outside information, outside knowledge, or put in your own assumptions to that. It's right there. All we need to do is understand the logical connections in the sentence and put them together to weave a logical story. Okay? Okay. So with this, I think, okay, let's just talk about a little bit of observation over here. What we saw here is that only 25, if you're wondering why we have this part over here, what I mean to say here is that only 25% of the sentence was underlined. But what we saw is that this 25% was very, very important. If you understood the meaning of the precise underlined portion in the sentence, you got it, right? But if you didn't get it, like in your first attempt, there is no way you can get this question right, and that's what we saw. So again, coming back to, pardon me, I'm just. Okay, yes. So again, coming back to the same idea, the meaning is most important. It's really, really important. First, understand the meaning, then take a look at the grammar of the sentence. And, this e-GMAT process, we are going to talk about, we are going to show you, we are actually going to solve all the questions using this meaning-based approach. Now, many of you may think about, do we need to, I saw a question saying that, like Shikhar asked, that do we really need to learn these expressions? No, you don't need to learn these expressions. All you need to do is ask yourself, what does it mean? And does it make sense in the sentence? See, when I asked you that question, A, B, and C, how did you interpret the meaning of this phrase? When you looked that phrase in isolation, you exactly knew what it meant. But when you read that phrase inside a big chunk of, a huge sentence, probably it just got lost in that. So you don't really need to learn anything. All you need to do is you need to inculcate this idea of looking at information into smaller pieces so that you understand what each and every bit in the sentence means, because you do have the ability to understand that, precisely that. Okay. All right. So with this, let's move on. Okay. I guess this we have a few marketing stuff going on in here. I think I'm going to skip that part and let's come back to our question number 2. And for that, let me bring in the poll first. You all know how we go about things in e-GMAT. First, we will click on still solving, And once I understand how many of you are with me on this question, I will show you the question for sure. And of course, the questions are all for you to solve. So let's just, a little housekeeping tip here. If you have any question for us, put it in the Q&A pod. But the answers to the question, or if we ask you a question and you need to reply, stick to the polls for that, okay? We will definitely provide you with all the necessary polls that you need to put in your responses. Q&A pod is in case you have any question for us. Okay, now that I see that, more than 50% of the class is with me. Question number 2, this time, now that you saw that the first time you used your method, splits method did not work, I'm not saying that you've understood the meaning-based approach completely, but try to apply whatever you have understood, okay? Try to read the sentence into smaller chunks and think about the sentence even before you move on to the answer choices. Think about the sentence more in terms of logic and then see how you're going about it, okay? So here is your question. Once again, I'm not timing you. I'll let you know when it's time to discuss the question. So all the best. All right, let's take last 10 seconds to solve this one. Urvansh, hold on to your question. I'm definitely going to talk about that part, okay? All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Okay, ending the poll here. Anybody last minute takers? No? Okay, I'm ending the poll here. Okay, this is again a very interesting sentence. I know the structure of the sentence is such that it throws many of you off. You know, the sentence starts with something and then you see these two long dashes in between, and then there is a clause in between, and then there's a pronoun, and you don't know how to deal with it. Okay, of course, when we look at the sentence in its entirety, I'm definitely not going to make, as I said, head and tail out of it. So what I do is I break the sentence down in smaller chunks, the way you see it on the screen. And when I start reading the sentence, I see that the sentence is starting with the word although. And we all know it that although presents contrast, right? Okay, so we are going to read some contrast in this sentence. And then the sentence says that although appearing less appetizing than most of their round and red supermarket cousins. So I know that something appears less appetizing. So there is comparison also involved in this sentence. Something is less appetizing than what? Than most of their round and red supermarket cousins. So my first entity in the comparison is round and red supermarket cousins, and something is less appetizing than this one. Okay, and then there's going to be a contrast. So I read on. Heirloom tomatoes grown from seeds saved during the previous year. Okay, so now I get my second entity that is involved in the intended comparison. So heirloom tomatoes are compared with their round and red supermarket cousins. Interesting choice of words, isn't it? Very fascinating. Supermarket cousins. So heirloom tomatoes have been compared to the round and red supermarket cousins. And by the way, the author is saying that heirloom tomatoes appear, they look less appetizing. And then this part of the sentence presents some extra information about the heirloom tomatoes. Then we hit this part of the sentence. They are often green and striped or have plenty of bumps and bruises. Now, before I explain this part, I want to understand what part is this sentence talking about, or which entity is this part talking about. If your answer is supermarket cousins, say SC. If your answer is heirloom tomatoes, say HT. I'm just going to give you abbreviation so that it saves time to. Okay, HT, good, great job. See, I got so many answers once I gave you the acronym. Okay, right. So, yes, indeed, it is talking about HT. And see, without any prompt, you gave me this answer because you got into the logic of the sentence. The supermarket cousins have already been described as round and red. Okay, they are round and they are red. This part of the sentence is talking about green and striped, plenty of bumps and bruises, totally opposite to red and round, right? So we understand that this part of the sentence is only talking about heirloom tomatoes. So this pronoun they is clearly talking about heirloom tomatoes. It cannot talk about any other noun, which is supermarket cousins. It cannot talk about supermarket cousins. So make a point of this right now. Okay, because see, you did understand what it is talking about when you were probed to think about it. right? The moment I forced you to think about it and give me an answer, you did that analysis and you came up with your answer that yes, if I'm talking about green and striped with plenty of bumps and bruises, it cannot be round and red supermarket, because these two descriptions cannot belong to the same entity. Okay, so they is talking about heirloom tomatoes. And then take it a little bit more further. What is this sentence talking about? It appears less appetizing. And yes, of course, think about a tomato looking green and striped with bumps and bruises, right? The author is giving us enough context, enough information to substantiate each and every information that he or she has put in this sentence. If the author has said that it looks less appetizing, it has described heirloom tomatoes. And yes, by reading these descriptions, we do understand that supermarket cousins are more handsome, right? They are more handsome. Okay, so that's the comparison part of it. Then we see heirlooms are more flavorful and thus increasing in demand. And there where this part connects with the contrast bit of it. That's where the contrast kicks in. What is the sentence trying to say? Hey, HD looks really bad. Huh? I mean, they are not pretty by any stretch of the imagination, but they are more flavorful. More flavorful than what? Of course, they are being compared with the supermarket cousins. So they are more flavorful than supermarket cousins, which is absolutely understood in the context of the sentence because the comparison has already been set in the beginning of the sentence, and thus, as a result, in increasing demand. Okay. So if we put all of these together, and if I were to ask you these questions, all of you could answer this. What appears less appetizing than most of their round and red supermarket cousins? Oh, I'm sorry about that. There you go. HT. Absolutely correct. Let's ask you the second question. What are grown from the seeds? I'm making you type again. Yes. My third question is going to be more interesting, I'm telling you. What are often green and striped? Oops, did I make you type again? Yes, I did. All right. Green and striped. So we are talking about this part over here. They talks about heirloom tomatoes and nothing else. And you do understand that. Okay, last question. Let's see. What would be your answer for this one? What are more flavorful and hence in increase? HD, yes. So HD is the hero of this question. All the information that we've gotten is about HD, but we have also seen a comparison going on with the red and more handsome supermarket cousins. And of course, in terms of flavor, HD again wins the game. Okay, so if I were to ask you, you see A1, A2, A3, A4. What are the 2 points that have been contrasted here? What presents the logical contrast here? Which 2 points, A1, A2, A3, A4, which 2 points make the contrast? So you'll have to choose 2 aspects like A1, A4. Somebody said that, yes. Appearance versus taste. I'll take that also. Looks and taste, yes. So it's A1 and A4 that really form the contrast in this sentence. And this contrast is absolutely logical. Hey, HD does not look so good, but it tastes awesome. And that's why it's in increasing demand. So now you completely understood the meaning of the sentence. Once we understand the meaning of the sentence, let me ask you this. Is choice A grammatical? Is it grammatical? Error-free? No grammatical errors? What is your answer to that? Most of you are saying no. And look at the sentence structure. It should be a no-brainer. Why? Because do you see any verb for heirloom tomatoes here? This is the subject, 2 verbs here. This is the subject, the verb here. Where is the verb for heirloom tomatoes? there is no verb for heirloom tomatoes, and that's why this sentence has grammatical errors. That's why the answer is yes, it has grammatical errors. Okay. They does not have a definite noun. I have already explained that to you, that they talks about heirloom tomatoes. We spoke at length about that. Okay, so let's move on from here. Okay, so choice A definitely is not the correct answer, and I'm glad to see that not many of you chose that choice. Okay, most of you went 53% of the class. That's more than 50%. Majority of you did choose choice B, and this indeed is the correct answer. Now, if you look at choice C, if you look at the structure, it has the same error. There is no verb for heirloom tomatoes. Choice E again has the same problem. Choice D, grammatically everything is fine, but that contrast presenting expression, although, is just not there in choice D. It's just giving some information. Okay, grown from seeds, heirloom tomatoes appear less appetizing than most of their round cousins. Heirlooms are more flavorful and doesn't. That contrast is not there anymore in choice D, and that is that amounts to alteration in the intended meaning, or distortion in the intended meaning. Okay. Take a look at choice A. Whoever asked that question, the missing verb, although appearing less appetizing than most of their round and red supermarket cousins, heirloom tomatoes, and then we hit a modifier for heirloom tomatoes, which is grown from seeds saved during the previous year. And then we have the subject here, the verb here, the subject here, and the verb here. But there is no verb for heirloom tomatoes anywhere in the sentence. And trust me, you will only be able to see this error if you break the sentence down into smaller chunks. I told you 2 merits of creating sentence structure: to understand the meaning and to look through the grammar used in the sentence. Okay, in such a big word, in such a big sentence, if you look at the sentence just like that, the way it appears on your screen at the top, it's very common to get lost. I mean, I'm teaching SE for last 10 years, but if I don't create sentence structure, sometimes I miss these kind of errors, Okay, so you ask a good question here. Didn't we derive the intended meaning from an incorrect option? You only understood that this is an incorrect answer choice because you did the analysis on this sentence. If you don't do your analysis on the original sentence, then what do you do your analysis on? One thing you must understand, you all must understand this, that original sentence is not there just to provide one of the 5 answer choices. No. The original sentence is there to tell you what the author wants to communicate. The author has put in all the context, all the information, all the logics that he or she wants to communicate in the complete sentence. And that's what we deal with. That's what we do our analysis on. If the sentence presents logical meaning, we keep that. Yes, the sentence can be grammatically incorrect, as we saw in case of question number 1, in case of question number 2. But when we pieced out, or when we analyzed the logical points in the question, we got it. We understood that the logic is absolutely fine in the sentence. All I need to do is correct this sentence grammatically. So if your original sentence presents logical meaning, you retain that. You go with it. You do not change it. Okay? Choice A can be incorrect. That's fine. But if it is presenting logical meaning, you retain that meaning with you, because we only have choice A, the original sentence to understand what the author is trying to say. Okay. So that's the, I mean, what else you will do your analysis on? I mean, and you come to this point whether this answer choice is right or wrong only when you do the analysis on it. If you don't do analysis, how will you even know whether it is right or wrong, right? And Abhinandan, you asked a question that you like the process but you are worried about the timing. How can we do all of this in 2 minutes? No, you cannot do this. You cannot do all of this in 2 minutes at this point in time, when you have just been exposed to this new process. It's a very new process for you. You will have to internalize the process in order to do all of this in less than 2 minutes. And for that, you need diligent practice. You shun all the other approaches. You only stick to the meaning-based approach, and you solve each and every question using this approach. Once you diligently apply this approach to say 25 to 30 OG questions, starting with easy questions, of course, you'll have to gradually become equipped to handle difficult questions. But once you apply this approach on 30 odd questions, you will see that your mind has become wired to approach SC in this way. The moment you will see the sentence, you will not move on to the answer choices. You will first break the sentence, then you will do the logical analysis of it, and then you will see, okay, this part is missing, this part will make more sense, this is how I need to change the grammar to make the sentence correct. Okay, Abhinandan? So your preparation time is your investment time. You put that time, or you invest that time in learning and internalizing this process. And then by the time you come to your original exam time, your mind would have become absolutely wired to solve SC questions in this manner. Okay. Urvansh, coming to your question, can there refer to heirloom? Absolutely it can. We already went through all of that, how they is absolutely talking about heirloom tomatoes. Yes, this sentence starts with a pronoun, but what else would it be talking about? I mean, again, put everything in the context of the meaning. Did you even have to think that, hey, their round and red supermarket cousins, who this there could be? Of course, it has to be heirloom tomatoes, because that the comparison is only between heirloom and supermarket tomatoes. That's all. All right. So again, this is all about developing a more meaning-based eyes or approach, whatever you want to call it. Okay. So the more you invest your time and effort in looking at the logic of the sentence, the better you will become with the process. Your dependence on grammar will reduce significantly. All right, so with this, I guess I am all good with this one. If you have any more questions, okay, I'll just quickly talk about the 2 dashes here. Don't worry too much about these 2 dashes in the sentence. The long dashes, they have just been used as 2 commas to present some extra contextual information in the sentence. That's all that they have been. I mean, you know, we should not be worried so much about punctuations in GMAT SC questions. They mostly are used to put in extra contextual information in the sentence. Okay. All right. So another takeaway that we got from this sentence is that first understand the meaning of the sentence, connect all the logical dots, put them together, and then even if the sentence is grammatically incorrect or it appears to be incorrect, as we saw in question number 2, in absence of the verb, the sentence will look incorrect. But if it has all the logical points that I require to understand my meaning, I first take care of that. I first take care of my aspects, and then I move on to fix that grammatical error that makes that choice incorrect. Okay. So with this, let's do a quick observation of 1 and 2. Question 2 had 55% of the sentence underlined. More than half the sentence was underlined in this sentence, and we saw that there were no clear splits in this one. But it did not bother us. Why? Because our approach is the same. We look at every question from the meaning perspective, and when we analyze the sentence from the meaning perspective, it just does not matter whether the entire sentence is underlined or just one word in the sentence is underlined or whatever, because we will have to put in the effort and time and energy to understand the meaning of the sentence. We'll have to do it on the entire sentence, irrespective of the length of the underlined portion in the sentence. Because without extracting the intended meaning of the entire sentence, there is no way I can understand what's going on in the sentence. So it doesn't matter if it's one word, two words, 55%, 25%, 82%. The analysis has to be done on the complete sentence. And that's why we say that this is one unified approach that helps in solving each and every SC question. Okay, so before I move on to our third question for the session, just a quick recap. Study plan is available for all the e-GMAT as well as free trial users.
Shraddha, I can take this part. I think there are a couple of questions that are there for you, that are marked for you. So if you can take those, that'd be great.
Sure.
All right, guys. So just with regards to the study plan. So prior to that, a couple of you really said, "Hey, this method is great. It just seems to take longer," and I'm sure a few of you have these issues as well, or have these concerns as well. First of all, if you have that concern, can you select yes, or can you type in yes on the short answer pod? If you feel, man, this is going to take long on the test, this is something which, yes, a lot of you are saying that, and I can tell you this: yes, when you're learning something new, it'll take longer to get that initially. So if you start using this method today, you're going to take longer. But once you master this method, you're going to be able to do this in less than a minute. All of this, okay? We wouldn't have the kind of success we have if this method, if people couldn't use this method on the test and succeed and do the questions in less than 90 seconds or so. So one of the first things you have to do is trust what you see over here. See if it seems seems logical, and if it seems logical, try it out, put your heart in it, spend about 4 to 5 days and see the improvement for yourself, and you'd see that improvement overall. Again, that's why we put the starts over here, so you can see that this works, and the splits method. First of all, when you think about it, why would a test such as the GMAT test you on splits? I mean, in today's world, computers can do splits better than humans, and there's no way you can beat a computer on that. The GMAT's not a test of pattern recognition; it's a test of logic. So which is why meaning and grammar make a lot more sense. And when it comes to logic, let's talk about having that logical study plan for you. And if you're an e-GMAT student, make sure you have that study plan. You have unlimited access to that PSP tool, and so which means that you can make a study plan at any stage of your preparation. And so let's say some people actually first think of getting to that 700 and then want to go from that 700 to that 740. So you can use that study plan tool again and again. And last year our students made about 10,000 study plans over there. And then if you're not an e-GMAT student, then make sure you take a Sigma X mock. That's really important. That gives you that those starting abilities, and make sure you have that target score in mind. If you don't have that target score and if you haven't taken a Sigma X mock, then it's just difficult to build that personalized study plan. And here are some of the links over here. You can get the link to my LinkedIn as well. And then take a Sigma X mock, book a session. You can book a session through the first link, and you can work with a strategy expert to actually make sure you get that study plan. Okay. With that, Shraddha, over to you again, and again, forgive me, guys, if all the slots are taken. So with that, Shraddha, over to you. Let's start with the next question, and really drive home the point on that meaning-based approach. I think the next two questions are take that meaning-based approach to that next level.
Thank you, Rajat. All right, guys. So we are now ready for our third question. But before we move on to our third question, I just want to set a little context for these two questions. The first two questions that we solved in the session, the original sentence presented logical meaning, and we spoke in length about that. That even if the original sentence was grammatically flawed, both of them actually were grammatically flawed, but they did present the logic. We didn't have to really break our heads to extract the logical meaning of the sentence. But the next two questions that we are going to solve here, they will not present the logical meaning, and yet you will be able to solve them correctly because your focus again has to be on the logic. So how to deal with those questions that do not provide logical meaning? So that's going to be our theme for the next two questions. Now, before we begin, could I have you click on still solving, please? Next two questions again from OG Advanced. Not the question number 4, but question number 3 is from OG Advanced. And just want to let you know that all the questions that we are solving here today are all 700 plus level questions. So you guys are actually solving difficult questions here with me today. Okay. So any more votes? Anybody else who would like to join in? Okay, so here I'm going to show you the question. Question number 3. Again, I'm not timing you. As soon as I see 80% of you, you are done doing this question, that's when we begin the analysis. So all the best. All right. Those who are yet to make a decision, can I Can I just intimidate you with my countdown for 10 seconds, which starts now? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Those 5 of you who are still deciding, you can just pick any answer because we've spent quite some time on this one already. Okay, so here I'm ending the poll. Very interesting question, very interesting question. One of my favorites from OG Advanced. And once again, we will use 3-step meaning-based approach. 3-step, first being the meaning analysis. We are first going to look into the sentence. We are going to break it down and try to understand what the sentence is doing. And you know what? You guys are going to solve this question for everybody else in the class. I'm just going to ask you questions. So what this sentence is saying, many of them chiseled from solid rock centuries ago. Okay, so the sentence is going to talk about something that, and many of them, they are many in number, okay? Many of these units have been chiseled, or they were chiseled from solid rock centuries ago, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Then the sentence talks about the mountainous regions of northern Ethiopia are dotted with hundreds of monasteries. I don't really think I need to explain that part to you, so you guys understand it all. Okay, so very simple looking sentence, very cute, very nice. Let's see what meaning does it convey and whether it is logical or not. Okay, so now listen to my question very carefully and then put in your responses in the short answer poll. The way the sentence is written, what are chiseled from solid rock? The way the sentence is written, what is it saying that what are chiseled? The way it is written. The way it is written. Okay, I think that you guys are just trying to tell me that what it should modify. So there are two questions basically. I first wanted to ask you that the way the sentence is written, what is it modifying? The way the sentence is written, many of them chiseled, is actually talking about, okay, get my pen in here. All right. It's talking about the mountainous regions of northern Ethiopia. Though I'm talking about the way the sentence is written, okay? It is talking about the mountainous regions. But your answers, you are right in saying that it should actually talk about hundreds of monasteries, because mountainous regions cannot be chiseled or carved out from a solid rock. They are made up, mountainous regions are made up of rock. Nobody can chisel them from one solid rock. Again, doesn't even fit into the context of the sentence. But yes, what can be chiseled out from solid rock? Hundreds of monasteries can be chiseled out from rock. Okay, so rocks can be chiseled into monasteries. So yes, logically the sentence should be talking, many of them should be talking about hundreds of monasteries, but it is not doing so. Would you agree with me on this when I say that many of them should be talking about monasteries, but it is not doing so? But it is not doing so in the original sentence. And yep, all of you are in agreement with me, and thank you for your affirmation. So we figured out three aspects, the three main points of discussion in this sentence, and we completely understand that aspect 2 is not even logical. It is not presenting logical meaning. We need to fix this aspect number 2, because we all understand, and see, I didn't give you any clues whatsoever. You did the logical analysis by yourself that, hey, it just does not make any sense to say that mountainous regions were chiseled from solid rock. It has to be monasteries, okay? So we need to fix that aspect number 2 in our sentence. So here we came across here are the details of the question. It's a communication-based advanced OG official 257. That's the number of the question. The difficulty level of this question is 700. It's a difficult question. So just by reading the sentence and just by logically looking at that sentence, we understood that the sentence is not written logically, but there was nothing in this sentence that hindered your logical understanding of what the author really intends to say, because all the information is right there in the sentence. It's right. Doesn't it sound like somebody did talk about it, and I guess I shared it all with all of you. Shikhar mentioned this. Basically, SE is like putting Lego blocks together in logical order. My analogy is slightly different. I often compare SE with jigsaw puzzles. The way you have small little chunks, that's what I do with my SE sentence. I break it into small little chunks to begin with. And then in our jigsaw puzzle, we look for visual clues, but in SE, we look for logical clues. And once I identify my logical clues, I put them all together to get the complete picture at the end of it. And that is what I did. And this is what all of you did with this sentence, because the moment you read this sentence, you understood, hey, it doesn't make sense to say that mountainous regions were chiseled from solid rock. It has to be monasteries. So you did recognize that there is a logical gap between the first part of the sentence and the second part of the sentence. Okay? All right. So let me ask you this. The modifier, many of them chiseled, this bit of information, if I pick this part of the sentence from where it is right now, and I place it after monasteries, will that make my sentence correct? Will that make my sentence correct? Think about it. Think about it. Don't rush. If you need time to do that, you want to write it down, write it down. Think about it. Most of you are saying yes, but not all of you are in agreement. But let me actually tell you, that's exactly what my correct answer choice does. That's exactly what my correct answer choice does. And why will it be complete? When I know that many of them chiseled is placed next to the mountainous regions, it is talking about mountainous regions. I don't want this modification. I want many of them chiseled to talk about hundreds of monasteries. So what I do is that I just place this right after hundreds of monasteries. That's all I need to do. And this is what I'm talking about, breaking your puzzle into logical clues and connecting the logical clues of this puzzle called SC. That's exactly all I need to do, is that I need to pick that block up and dump it right at the end of the sentence, and that will fix my problem. Well, you can use them for things also. Whoever asked that question, monasteries is a thing, so it must be referred to as which. Them can also be used for things, by the way. Okay, but again, don't get caught up in the grammar of it. Right now, focus on the meaning. That's all I'm trying to tell you, that if that block is talking about mountainous regions, because it is close to that, all I need to do is that pick up that beginning block and dump it right at the end of the sentence next to hundreds of monasteries, and that will solve my problem. And that's exactly the problem has been solved in this question. So you saw, when the sentence did not make logical sense, you took that extra step to break the sentence, to cut it into pieces and try to put those pieces in a logical fashion so that your end result should be logical. And this is what you need to do. You need to extract the logical meaning even before you move on to solve the question. Don't be dependent on the answer choices to give you those logical clues, because then in that case, what will happen? You will have to go back into the sentence each and every time to validate the answer choice. because you're looking at choice A. You didn't do your logical thing. Now what you will have to do, you will have to individually plug each and every answer choice into the original choice. So you will actually be dealing with the original sentence 5 times apart from you read the sentence, and that is what eats up your time in SC. When you go back to the sentence and read it over and over again to validate each and every answer choice that you have. But right now, I have created my logical framework. I need that modification for many of them chiseled right at the next to monasteries. That's all I want to do. And once I have that, I have a clear picture what my correct answer choice should look like. And I'm going to now assess my different answer choices on the basis of this logical framework. Okay, that's all I need to do. Just pick up many of them and dump it right at the end of the choice. So let me show you the results before I move on to showing you the answer choices. Choices A and B got very few votes, 5 each. Choice B repeats the logical error of choice A, so let's not even talk about it. Let's come to choice C. You see, neck to neck tie it's between choice D and choice E, and I'm glad that choice D got that 1 extra vote. No, actually not. I'm sad that D got that 1 extra vote, because the correct answer is choice E, not choice D, and I'll show you why is that happening. Let's first talk about choice C very, very quickly. Choice C corrects the logic in here. Structure has been changed, but the meaning has been rectified. So good that this sentence, this choice changes the structure of the sentence. Hundreds of monasteries, many of them chiseled from solid rock centuries ago. Everything is going fine so far. The only problem with this sentence is the usage of this verb are dotting. Are dotting is a simple present tense verb. It means that the monasteries are coming up as I am taking this session or as you are attending this session. It talks about an action that is going on at this very moment. And you all understand that this meaning is illogical. I have a couple of simple sentences for reference from you. When I share the PDF, you can always go through that. But I hope that most of you do understand that what's the difference. Choice D and choice E, the arch rivals for this particular question. Choice D loses out. Why? Because of this verb tense issue, are chiseled centuries ago. We are talking about an action that took place hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. How can we use a simple present tense verb for an action that is done and over? Did you think about it? Again, a logical aspect. I mean, grammar, yes, but then you translated that grammar into meaning. Hey, does this make sense? Did you ask yourself this question? Hey, does it make sense to say that something is done centuries ago? Would you say that a huge earthquake hits India in 1965? Would you say that? You wouldn't say that. You would say that a large earthquake hit India in 1965 because that action took place in the past. You need a simple past tense verb to talk about an action which took centuries ago. I will come to the discussion of which and then. Just hold on to that thought process. Hey, what about which? What about? I'll come to that. But first try to understand why choice D is wrong. Okay? And all of those people who chose choice E, pat on your back because you got it right. You got it right, and great job in selecting choice E. And look at choice E. You have the original sentence over here, and this is the correct answer choice. Look what they have done. All they have done is they've picked up many of them from the beginning of the sentence and they have dumped it right after monasteries. That's it. That's all I was trying to tell you in the beginning of the sentence. That's all we need to do in here. Nothing else. Nothing else. Okay. And I'm going to fulfill your desire. Whoever said that, could you please show both choices D and E on the screen? There you go. Choice D versus choice E. If we look at the structure of both these choices, many of which are chiseled, structurally absolutely correct. If we look at the structure of choice E, hundreds of monasteries, many of them chiseled from solid rock, absolutely correct. Both these choices are structurally absolutely correct because we have which here, which is a relative pronoun modifier. It requires to have a clause that requires the subject and the verb and all those things. And that's the reason why when it brings in the verb in here, it brings in a wrong verb. And the author used that verb to exploit this answer choice, to make it wrong. Okay, so the test makers know, the question makers know how we think, so that's what they do. They try to exploit our thought process when they create such difficult questions, many of which, yes, looks absolutely fine, but in that rush, you totally forgot that are chiseled cannot be used with centuries ago. Yes, if we turn are chiseled to were chiseled, choice D would have been correct, but that's the precise reason why we do not have were chiseled here, because then we could not have choice E as the correct answer. There cannot be two correct answer choices for the same question, and that's why we see are chiseled there. That makes choice D incorrect. Okay. All right. So you understand, many of them, it's just a simple pronoun here. This pronoun talks about hundreds of monasteries, many of them closer to hundreds of monasteries. So that's what it talks about, and it's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Structurally, both the choices are correct, but choice D loses out to choice E because it uses that incorrect verb tense, and that's what makes choice D illogical. Okay. So, is the logic clear? See, there's nothing to see. Which is a modifier, it's a noun modifier. Them is a pronoun. They both refer to noun, but they are used in different structures. That's all I would say. Let's not get into the grammar part of it really over here, because then I'll have to, teach you the whole thing about which and how to use pronoun. But for that, our course is there. We have both these concepts covered up very, very, very nicely over here. Okay. But the point is that you understand that when you look at the meaning that is presented by are chiseled, you don't even need to think about, hey, is which and them really the point of consideration in arriving at the correct question, the correct answer? No. Which and them is not even a point of consideration to come to the right answer. It is are chiseled. It is are chiseled that makes choice D incorrect. Okay? Make sense? All right. So once again, in order to solve any question correctly, we first need to have that 100% clarity of the logical meaning that the author wants to convey through that particular sentence. And that's what we did with this question also. The original sentence was not presenting the logical meaning, but we took that one extra step to break the sentence down and trying to connect the logical dots to get the logical picture out of the sentence. And once we understood that what it should do, we exactly know what my answer choice should look like. Okay. So that is what it is. All right. So with this, once again, we started off with a sentence that was just 25% underlined, then 55% underlined, and then we landed up on a sentence that was 100% underlined, but our approach did not change. We performed exactly the same steps on all the three questions and got to the correct answer. And mind you, just a reminder, We are all solving very difficult questions over here. All of them are 700 questions, okay? But how much are we talking even about grammar? We are only focusing on the meaning. I mean, the previous question, if you only focused on the meaning of it, you would have gotten it. Meaning approach was enough to solve the chiseled question, okay? All right, so with this, here are some points for introspection. I really don't want to know your answer, that what source do you use for solutions of every SC question that you solve. My guess would be for OG questions, definitely the OG guide, the explanations there, or most of you would be probably on GMAT Club or be the GMAT forum to get the answers. But why am I asking this question? I'm saying you this because as an e-GMATer, I mean, as a faculty at e-GMAT, I personally take immense pride in presenting the kind of details that we do. And we do it by default. You know, we do it by default for every single question because we believe that one unified approach can be applied to every single SC sentence. And when we present the very same, the efficacy of this approach to you, we show you the kind of details that we get into so that you can see that how well this meaning-based approach works on every single SC sentence. And it really works. It does. As I told you before, that you know, nobody's going to tell you that you need to focus on logic, and it's all about logic. And difficult questions, they play on logic, they hardly play on grammar. You know, your chiseled question, if I take that for an example, there was nothing grammatically wrong in that sentence. Yes, you could say the modifier placement, but you only recognized that the modifier is not placed correctly because you saw the meaning of it. That, hey, this meaning does not make sense. And that's why the modifier is not placed correctly. So it is your understanding of the logic that led you to get to this point that, hey, the grammar also is not right in this sentence. So it's all about logic. Make those logical connections. You are not going to learn it in one day, I'm telling you. After solving these 4 questions, you think you're going to go back to OG and you're going to start solving questions like a pro. No, that's not going to happen. And that's why we tell you, with e-GMAT process, you first unlearn your existing process and then you learn the e-GMAT process. But once you learn it, you stick to it till it becomes a mechanical process where it becomes so internalized, it becomes, you can compare that action with tying the shoelaces. I don't know how many of you even wear shoes with laces these days, or neckties, you know. But think about that. Or maybe riding a bike, or driving your car, or playing the musical instrument that you're so good at, or doing any other thing that you do that you're so good at. Eventually, after doing it over and over and over and over again, diligently, that's the word there, you did that diligently to make that process internalized completely. And now it's become a second habit for you, right? So this is what you need to do with this process as well. Just stick to it. It's going to take time, but eventually, as you become better and better at applying this process, you will see that the time will automatically get adjusted, and all these questions you will be able to handle in less than 2 minutes. That's our guarantee. Okay. Alrighty. With this, with all my lecture on that last bit, let's do the last question of this session, and it's definitely probably the toughest question out of all, because the sentence, I'm being nice and generous to you today. I'm going to tell you that this sentence requires a lot of attention, okay? I don't know how much does that amount to being nice, but yes, I'm just setting the context for the sentence. The sentence that you're going to see next is very context heavy, okay? So keep your logical hat on, and keep in mind that you need to really look into the logic of this sentence to get it right. Okay, so let me hear from you. What happened? Still solving? Show me some enthusiasm. 151 people still going strong in this sentence. In this session, not in this sentence. I'm sorry. I'm too excited. All right, I've gotten some good responses over here, so I'm going to show you the last question, one of my favorite questions, but yes, go ahead, solve this question, and then we will discuss it. All the best. All right. Only about 15%, in fact, 14% students need to make their choices. That has come down to 13% now, 12, 11, 10, 9. Anybody else? Just make that decision and let's move on. I've been holding you guys up from a pretty long time now. Last question for the session. Let's wind it up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. Good participation. I must say the best participation so far. So ending the poll here. And before I dive into this question, which is again my personal favorite, how many of you are 100% confident about the choice that you have made? That whatever choice I have chosen, I know it is correct, and it is correct for the right reasons. One is somebody saying not at all. Come on, are you kidding? Okay, 100%. Most of you are confident. Yes, most of you are confident. Split between B and D. We'll talk about it. 50%. Okay, hanging in there. Okay. All right. Okay, so I have kind of mixed feeling over here. I would say that it's kind of equal split between how many of you are confident about the choice that you've made and how many of those who have not. Okay, first things first, we will talk about the meaning. Look at that length of the sentence. What do you think? If we are going to read the whole thing in one go, who will understand the meaning? Nobody. I'm not even looking at it. So let's break the sentence down into pieces. That's what I have done here. And now I'm going to read one chunk at a time and trying to understand the meaning. About 5 million acres in the US have been invaded by leafy spurge. Okay, that's not too difficult to understand. Huge chunk of United States has been invaded by something called leafy spurge. Now, at this point in time, we may think, hey, what could this leafy spurge be? But, you know, leafy, probably some kind of vegetation. And the author exactly understands that point, and so he or she takes that trouble of explaining what leafy spurge is. A herbaceous plant. I don't understand what is herbaceous. Maybe herb-like. That's the closest I can go, but doesn't really matter. It's a kind of a plant that has come from Eurasia, okay, with milky sap. Okay, so leafy spurge contains milky sap, a white liquid that gives mouth sores to cattle. Okay, milky sap gives mouth sores to cattle. Pretty good. Displacing grasses and other cattle food and rendering rangeland, worthless. Okay, so my sentence makes sense thus far. Absolutely no issues. Whatever it says, I totally agree to it. Everything logical. Things starts to become murky from this point on. Displacing grasses and rendering rangeland. So here I'll have to look into the grammar a little bit to understand the meaning. We know that comma plus verb ing modifiers act as action modifiers, right? And they either present the result, or they present the how aspect of it, or they logically explain the modified action. And this is all available. The one of the most crucial modifiers e-GMAT gives out as part of its free trial. So please, all of you, make use of that offering. Okay, please make use of that offering and learn how comma plus verb ing modifiers work. So yeah, that's what they do, action modifiers. And in this case, they seems to be presenting the effect of this cause. So the cause is milky sap gives mouth sores to cattle. And as a result, the grasses are displaced and the rangeland, that means the grazing ground, becomes absolutely useless. Now, let me ask you this question. Does it make sense to say that because milky sap gives mouth sores to cattle, it displaces or replaces grasses and other cattle food? Does this meaning make sense? Y or N? Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. There you go. Ooh, all the N's and No's trickling in. Couple of Y's, but we'll talk about that. No, okay, not sure there. Huh? I like that expression. No, very, very animated. Okay, so no, it doesn't make sense to say that because milky sap gives mouth sores to cattle, milky sap displaces grasses. I mean, come to think of it, can milky sap displace? What does it mean? What does displace mean? Something that you're moving away from its place, right? That's as simple as that. It displaces grasses. Does milky sap displaces grasses? No, it cannot. That does not even make sense. However, the context for the usage of this expression is there in the sentence. If I were to ask you, what is that entity that can displace grasses and cattle food? What will be your answer? By the way, if you want to say leafy spurt, say LS. Good job. The sheep? There is no sheep in the sentence. What are you talking about? Mouth sores? How can mouth sores displace grasses? It's the LS. It's the leafy spurge. It's a kind of a vegetation that displaces or forces out the grasses and cattle food. Okay, so that's what leafy spurge does. Okay, so this action should be connected to leafy spurge. That's my first logical point. Okay, now think about it. Rendering rangeland worthless. How this action can come about? How can this action take place? From whatever is given in the sentence. Again, focus only in the sentence. Focus only on what is being given. By invasion, displacement, invasion, DS. What does DS mean? I'm not sure. If you want to say displacement, okay, maybe that's that. By invasion, displacement. So there's because of the displacing grass. I like that answer. That presents the cause very, very clearly. And that is correct. Why the rangeland will become worthless? Because leafy spurge displaces all the grass and all the cattle food, and instead it grows. It's just leafy spurge in those land areas. The cattle will not go there to graze, because when they eat leafy spurge, they get mouth sores, right? So those rangeland will become useless in which leafy spurge has grown, right? So displacing grasses and other cattle food leads to making these grazing grounds absolutely useless. So this particular modifier should actually be talking about displacing grasses and other cattle food. And displacing grasses and this action should be connected with leafy spurge. So choice A, grammatically absolutely correct, but meaning wise absolutely incorrect. Completely illogical meaning that it presents. The usage of these two comma plus verb ing modifiers presents absolutely illogical cause and effect. Okay, so with this understanding, let's now move on to answer choices, and let me show you your results first. 48, phenomenal, very good performance on this one. B is the correct answer, and that's why I asked you this question. How many of you are 100% sure of your selection? And most of you, I mean, I would say 50%. Many of you were sure, but many of you did also say that you were not sure why you landed up on the answer choice that you landed up on. And if you chose B without, you just chose it without knowing the reason, let me do the honors here. Let me show you why choice B is the correct answer. And that's why sentence structure helps understand what's going on in the sentence. I mean, if I just present this structure to you, I don't need to do any explanation, provided you read it very carefully. You take a good look at this structure and see how the sentence is flowing. Okay, so what it is saying, okay, huge land chunk has been invaded by leafy spurge that has come from Eurasia with milky sap that gives mouth sores. Now, here are certain points of discussion. Take a look at this choice. There is a comma here. Okay, now we have that in this choice, many of the people, they reject choice B because they say that, hey, you've been talking about meaning-based approach, but choice B does change the approach, does change the meaning. In choice A, we learned that it is the milky sap that gives mouth sores. But according to choice B, it is leafy spurge or the herbaceous plant, both are the same. It is the herbaceous plant or the leafy spurge that gives mouth sore. Does not that change meaning? My question to you is, does it really change the meaning? If I were to ask you this question, does it really change the meaning? If I say that milky sap gives mouth sores or leafy spurge gives mouth sores, does it really change the meaning? Be 100% confident in what you want to say. The answer is no, because leafy spurge contains milky sap. They are not exclusively independent entities. They are not exclusively independent. The plant or this leafy spurge contains the milky sap. It contains the milky sap. And so it does not make sense whether, it does not make much difference whether we say that milky sap gives mouth sores or leafy spurge gives mouth sores. Okay? So even if this choice is saying that a herbaceous plant that gives mouth sores, the meaning remains the same. Now, yes, the comma does play a little role over here. You see that with milky sap is now placed. I mean, when I showed you the question, it was there. It is just in the solution part that we missed it. I'll quickly show you here. See, with milky sap. So you had comma over there. So not that, you know, we missed it and probably that confused you. No, when you saw the question, it was there. It just got missed in this part, and I'll make sure that I put it in back. Okay, so coming back here, what's happening over here is that when this with milky sap has been enclosed between two commas, like we saw the two long dashes, it just contains some extra contextual information in the sentence. What happens in leafy spurge sentence is that that jumps milky sap and refers to herbaceous plant, which is equal to leafy spurge. Okay, so now giving mouth sores, this action is connected with herbaceous plant, which is leafy spurge in the context of this sentence, and displacing grasses also correctly connects to leafy spurge. That is what we wanted, didn't we? This is what we wanted to do. We wanted to connect the action of displacing with the leafy spurge, the herbaceous plant, and that's exactly what choice B is doing. And the last part remains the way it was, because now this last part is presenting the effect of the displacement of grasses. When leafy spurge displaces grasses and other cattle food, in the process, it renders rangeland worthless. Okay, so choice B is the correct answer. Someone of you asked this, but the option gave us extra information that milky sap is responsible for mouth sores. Choosing this option removes this info. Again, I will have the same question. Does it really remove that info? Milky sap gives mouth sore or leafy spurge gives mouth sore. Does it really make difference? Does it really make difference? Are you saying that if the cattle licks licks the milky sap from somewhere, it will get mouth sore. But if it eats leafy spurge, it will not get mouth sores, will it not? So these are the logical connections that you need to make up when you have these doubts. Ask yourself these questions. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? That's what you need to keep doing to yourself in order to understand whether the structural change is really bringing about any meaning change or not. Okay? So I guess you now understand how beautifully this question is written and how beautifully it resolves the logical gap that we found in choice A. So choice B indeed is the correct answer. Here I spoke a little bit about grammar, which is a noun modifier modifying the faraway noun. I have added a couple of slides here for you to make you understand how this thing works. By the way, we are the only company that talks about this part over here. We are the only one who talks about faraway noun modification by just a second, I'm just trying to bring in the articles and the solutions articles here. Okay. Oh, okay. This is not the one I was looking for. Okay. So we are the ones who we have the same, we have the article by the same name on GMAT Club, and it's one of our most read and appreciated article. If you ever get time, go to GMAT Club and read Noun Modifiers Can Modify Faraway Nouns. It completely gives you the framework as to when a noun modifier can modify a slightly far away noun. I've given a couple of examples over here in line with the logic used in this official sentence. You will get the PDF. Do go through them to understand them better. I just want to bring to your attention that this concept is tested on GMAT, and we have a couple of questions. I mean, I've just mentioned 2 questions like that over here, the solutions to which you can find here, the full length question and the solutions. But if you go to Noun Modifiers Can Modify Faraway Nouns article on GMAT Club, in that thread you will see that the posters have posted questions about many questions that have this usage going on in there. Okay, so if you want a little deep diving into this aspect, you can definitely go to GMAT Club and look up our article and review it. So that's what's going on in choice B. That's exactly what we saw, and it completely fixes up the problem that we saw in choice A. Logically all correct. Choice C, not many of you chose it. Just to make you understand that over here, there is a parallelism between having milky sap and displacing grasses. Now, it does not make sense to put these 2 things as a parallel list, because having milky sap is the characteristic of leafy spurge. It's a characteristic, it's a feature of leafy spurge, but displacing grasses is an action done by milky leafy spurge. So we cannot have a feature and an action parallel to each other. That's what makes choice C incorrect. And then, of course, we definitely have this modifier talking about nothing absolutely in choice C. So that cause and effect between displacing and rendering is not established in choice C. So choice C still remains logically incorrect. Let's talk about choice D. Basically, the contest is between B and D because, hey, D looks very, very neat. Very, very neat. But again, I would request you to pay attention to the structure of this sentence. If you do so, you will see there is no verb for 5 million acres in the United States. This subject has no verb in choice D. That's the first and the most blatant grammatical error. I find missing verbs errors to be the most obvious errors because they are very easy to locate. And once you see this error, you can just, reject that answer choice and move on. You don't have to look for any other error in that answer choice if a choice has a missing verb for a subject. So that's first problem. The second problem over here is that you see there are no commas around milky sap. So that is talking about milky sap over here. Milky sap gives mouth sores. Check. It makes sense. Milky sap displaces grasses. No, does not happen. Milky sap does not displace grasses. Milky saps renders rangeland worthless. No. So once again, an example of a list that looks parallel, that is grammatically parallel, because it has 3 verbs in it, but the other 2 does not even make sense with the subject. So you call it a grammatical parallelism error, or you call it that the other 2 verbs, displaces and renders, do not make sense with the subject. That is fine. The main thing is that there is an error in this part of the sentence that totally violates the logic of the sentence. Coming down to our last answer choice, once again we see that 5 million acres, the subject does not have a verb, so that's a problem over there. And once again we see that has milky sap. Milky sap gives mouth sores. This part is fine, but milky sap displaces grasses. No, that is not right. And once again, the cause and effect is not very clear between the action of displacing and rendering rangeland worthless. Okay, so choice E is also incorrect. So as we found out, choice B indeed was the correct answer, and those people who landed on choice B with 100% confidence and with all the correct reasons, you know that you did a great job. Okay, so with this we are done solving all the questions for this session. But once again, I just want to present an overview of what we did today. We did all sorts of questions today, all OG questions, all hard questions, and we applied the same approach all throughout. You know, whatever questions we did, we focused only on the meaning to begin with, at least, and then even when we looked at the grammar only to understand the logic of that sentence. Okay, so that's the way to do it. If you apply this method, you don't have to depend on any of the splits method or any other method. This method is good enough to see you through every kind of every sort of SE question, be it whatever difficulty level, be it whatever underlined portion of the sentence, or whatever it is. And we proved it to you through 4 official questions, 4 difficult official questions. Okay, so with this, I guess I'll hand the session back over to Rajat, but all I want to request you to take a note of is that SE is all about meaning. Just change that perception that SE is all about a ton of grammatical rules. No, it's not. It's really that logic that you need to extract, and e-GMAT meaning-based approach is one process that actually helps you develop that process and helps you develop that approach towards SE. And you know, your dependence on grammar will go down, and you will be better equipped to handle difficult questions by this approach. Okay, so with this, I would call back Rajat in the session. Rajat, over to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Shraddha. So and I think so the SE solution links are very, very valuable. So I'm going to actually remove a few of the polls. One thing I'd say is look at these solutions that Shraddha has shared, and I think those are perfect icing on the cake. They will kind of reinforce that faith in the method over here. So Tarun has a really interesting question. He says, I don't know, Shraddha, if you took this one, but I'm going to take this again. He says, as solving an SE question, would you recommend writing and breaking down the whole sentence on paper? And then he goes on to say that if you try and do this in your head, that is, then you will get messed up. Great question. A lot of people, I'm sure, have a similar question. Just really say, how do I approach this next? Why? Because you know, the way I've been solving SE questions is looking at splits and not writing a whole lot of stuff. just from just show in the poll how many of you have a similar question. If you can just say yes, I have a similar question, or along the same lines, that would be great. So essentially, one of the things you've got to when you think about this, it's essentially a question about learning. And whenever you're learning something new, you have to deliberately go through the process. And deliberately going through the process means, hey, taking things slow, mastering every step in that process. And to do that, yes, initially you will have to write it out on paper. And one of the most unfortunate things is that most experts out there, they don't talk about the skill of learning. They talk about this is how you should solve in the end, and this is how you should do it, but they don't talk about that phase of learning that people need to go through. And because of which, people start to run before they learn how to walk. When it comes to mastering anything, you've got to learn to walk before you run. So in this case, yes, you'll have to put it down on paper and do this initially. Do this for about 20 questions. You do that for about 20 questions. The 21st question would come automatically. The 22nd question would be even easier, will take less time. You'd be a lot more confident about it. And which is why when you think about, if you're an e-GMAT student, you would have heard of the 3 stages of learning. Anyone over here who's heard about the 3 stages of learning? Yes, and that's where those stages exist, where you learn concepts and methods, master methods, and then refine to perfection. And which is where, when we look at your metrics, we look at your metrics across those 3 stages, and we look at different metrics in each of those stages. And we don't worry about timing during the first stage. We just tell you, don't worry about timing, just focus on mastering that method. Because once you master the method, we've seen this happen with tens of thousands of students, that timing just falls in place. So, and the reason why people, don't improve despite spending a ton of time preparing for essays, because they don't follow the stages of learning. They try and run before they learn how to walk, and that creates problems. Why? Because you don't build the muscle you're supposed to build, and you don't build the muscle, you typically end up breaking your bone, and which is what happens with many of you. Those MBA dreams kind of go down the drain. So the first thing you've got to do is approach every question using the meaning-based approach, and it will be slow, it will be painful, it will be frustrating. At the same time, it will be rewarding as well. Why? Because you will see that whatever you're answering, you will be a lot more certain of the answer. You know why you're rejecting incorrect answer choices. You'll have good, solid reasons to reject that. And there are many people who've been through this journey. Here's a guy, one of the smartest guys I know. His name is Dr. Rohit Singh Milan. He's a medical doctor. He's also an IDES officer, which means he cleared the IAS exam in India, one of the most challenging exams. And this guy, actually, when he attempted the GMAT for the first time, the guy who cleared a medical exam, an MBBS test, and an IAS exam, he couldn't ace the GMAT. He was stuck at a V32. And essentially, why? Because he was approaching GMAT Sentence Correction as a test of grammar. And when he was doing that, this is what would happen when he would solve difficult questions. His brain would tell me, even this is right, even that sounds right. But there was no way to come to a conclusion. And I'm sure many of you kind of feel similar or feel the same. What happens with that meaning-based approach? You actually end up seeing what the sentence is supposed to communicate. What is it that the author wants to say? And essentially, when you do that, you start seeing the various aspects of those sentences, which is what he's talking about when he says various appendages, and you see how those aspects make sense in the correct version, and they seem illogical in the incorrect version, even though from a grammatical construction they seem just fine. When you do that, this is what you end up doing. You reject answer choices on solid grounds, not just built on some rules that were built 200 years back, but on solid reasons that are valid today. Here's another guy who scored a 770, and this guy was he's a Chinese Canadian who studied over here majority of his life. So even though he's practically a native speaker, he faced issues, and essentially he was stuck at 700. So but when he started doing the meaning-based approach, he was able to to improve to 770. He got into GSB Chicago as well as Columbia Business School. Again, he says something very similar. He says when it comes to those hard questions, 700 level, this means hard questions. Grammar will not be the deciding factor. Why? Because you'll always have two good options left. The only way you'll be able to select the correct answer, and again, in 90 seconds, is by understanding the meaning. Okay. So basically, focus on understanding the meaning, and to understand the meaning, make sure you pause while reading the original sentence at the right time. When you do that, you're going to find understanding the meaning becomes a lot easier. If you're an e-GMAT student, go through the Master Comprehension course, not just once, but twice. Every time you go through it, it will help improve your ability to comprehend the meaning as well as your ability in sentence correction. Another thing that I want to talk about is that, when it comes to getting to that 90th percentile, it's about achieving perfection. A lot of people think I'm going to read and get there. And, that's one way. A few people do get it, but most people don't. Why? Because even when we're studying, we miss certain things. That's kind of just how the human nature is. We need reinforcement. Now, how do you figure out of the 200 odd concepts where you need reinforcement? That's where data comes in. To get to that 90th percentile ability, you need to fill all the gaps in your preparation. And a lot of people think GMAT SC is about mastering just about, so 7 or 8 concepts in subject verbs, pronouns, modifiers, parallelism, and comparison. And in some people even consider meaning as a concept, which I think is crazy. A meaning is a method, it's not a concept. In reality, GMAT Sentence Correction has about 200 odd concepts, just the GMAT Sentence Correction. Sentence Correction in general has way more, but the context of GMAT Sentence Correction, there are about 200 odd concepts. Now, when I say this, a lot of people say, hey man, tell me the list of those 200 concepts so I can master them. Again, the approach towards learning those concepts isn't going to work on the GMAT. It's about inculcating this. So where do these 200 odd concepts come from? They essentially are formed of the same core 7 concept groupings that I talked about, but then you actually have sentence structures as a part of that context. So if you think about the 4 questions that you solved in this session, they had a varied set of sentence structures. There was the same errors, same categories of errors that I talked about, starting from subject verb to comparisons, but they were applied across different sentence structures. And when you do that, you get to these 200 concepts. And essentially, when you kind of expand that matrix, you actually need evidence that you've mastered those 200 concepts, or you've mastered these 7 big concept groups across those multiple sentence structures that you're going to really see that. So one of the questions that I ask people is, what evidence do you have that you've done that? And the answer is no, there is no evidence. Why? Because when you study using a book doesn't track how you learn things, and then the book doesn't track stuff, you actually don't get feedback. You don't get feedback, you don't refine, and then you don't retain mastery. As a result, you get stuck at that 60th percentile. Now, a lot of people think 60th percentile is 60th percentage. No, it's not. You might end up scoring 7 out of 10 questions correctly. You might still be at 50th or 55th percentile. Why? Because if everyone gets to those 7 questions, then essentially or half the people get to those 7 questions, then you're at 50th percentile or so. Okay. So what do these, how do these concepts kind of manifest themselves? So just I'm going to list down 10 different kind of manifestations out of those 200. So verb ED forms across various sentence structures, how do they express themselves as verbs or modifiers? When are they verbs? When are they modifiers? How do you use a relative pronoun modifier to modify the prior clause or the prior noun? In what scenarios can noun plus noun modifier or noun modifiers modify slightly far away noun? In which cases can verb ing modifiers act as an action versus a noun modifier or so? And again, over here are some of these things which translate into. There are certain cases where the use of verb ing and verb noun plus noun modifiers, that's completely different. But there are cases in which they actually communicate the same meaning, and there they can be used interchangeably. This clarity, when you have that clarity, that's when you achieve that 90th percentile. But if you start worrying about this right away, you're not going to get it. Why? Because you're at that level where you're still mastering these concepts. These come more around when you are about 50th to 60th% in the learning aspect of the course. But essentially, again, what I'm trying to tell you is you just don't have those 7 concepts and those rules. There's application of this, and you have to master this application. And evidence of when you've done all of this, this is evidence that you've come close to mastering that application over here. So to get to these 200 concepts, you actually need to learn each one of them. You need to then look at things that come naturally to you, and then things that are natural weakness. And once you figure that out, that's when you get into the refinement phase. And then you get into the excellence phase where you apply this to some of the most challenging questions. Okay. At e-GMAT, we built technology to make sure that you get that personalized feedback. We actually give you feedback about 100 times during just the sentence correction course. And you compare this with working with a typical online course or a typical book, you get about 8 to 10 times feedback. Or even if you work with the world's best private tutor, you'd probably get that feedback about 25 times. So that's 4 times higher than what you'd get from the world's best private tutor, and which is why you see the results that you see. And that's one of the reasons when we look at stats internally, when we see those stats line up, we know that this person is going to get to that 90th percentile. When we see those stats not line up, we know that this person is not going to succeed. So it kind of cuts both ways. Okay. So let's kind of talk about application. A lot of people think about learning application once after learning those concepts. We don't believe that's the right way. Within the e-GMAT course, you learn application when you learn concepts. So if you look at the architecture of just the SC course, this is just the learning part of SC course. When you're doing subject verb, you learn application twice. When you're doing verbs, you learn application 3 times. When you're doing modifiers, we teach you application through specifically built AV files 5 times, and then you have the corresponding practice quizzes over there. And when you do that, you get feedback on your ability to apply these concepts, not just a learning of these concepts over here. Okay. So about conceptual feedback about 100 times, application level feedback around 23 times. And when you make use of that feedback and act upon it, there's a very high likelihood you get to that 90th percentile or so. And this is something where you can see how some of this feedback comes up. Here's one of our very old students, and this is the e-GMAT platform from 2 years back. And you can see how this feedback manifests itself. Every learning activity, and this is a learning activity, has 2 things, at least 2 things over there. One is how much time you spent. This is not the time of the video. The video length could be about 15 minutes, but because this guy revised a few things twice, he spent 21 minutes. And then there's a scoring over here where we have proprietary technology through which we send data to our LMS, or what we call as the record store, and then you are rated on this. And when you look at each of these learning entities, there's a rating over here which tells you whether you've learned this properly or whether you need to revise this. And here's an example of where an SV application file where he's learned application, and you can see the amount of time he spent doing that. Similarly, on a difficult concept, he had to revise this a few times, which is why he spent about an hour doing this. So it's right effort at the right time. Now you can see that he scored a 60% over here, and yet he was able to score 100% in the corresponding assessment right after this. Why? Because he spent a good amount of time revising his mistakes over here. Similarly, in the verbs concept, he scored 64% over here, and he was able to score 100% in the following one because he revised his mistakes here. How do we know this? Because when we go into that practice quiz where he scored 64%, you can see that he has bookmarked these questions over there in the quiz itself. So again, it's that feedback that helps you improve right then and there. And when you do that, you don't leave holes, and you don't leave holes, you improve a lot faster. Okay. And again, you see the same person say the same thing again and again, which is that, hey, this is my concepts weren't bad. He knew those 7 major concept types, but where he lacked was application of those concepts. It's the application that's going to actually help you improve to that high GMAT score. With that, if you want to know how to approach sentence correction, take a look at the free trial. There are some really good concepts there in the free trial. You can really experience this entire platform, not just in sentence correction, but in number properties and in geometry, in word problems. Actually, not in word problems yet, but in critical reasoning and reading comprehension as well. And if you want to figure out how do you get scholarships, e-GMATers have gotten upwards of $200 million worth of scholarships. You can go to our YouTube channel and watch their stories. Okay. With that, I'd be happy to take on any questions. Again, on our YouTube channel, you'll see about $10 odd million worth of scholarship data over there. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this webinar. If you can, I'd love to get some feedback on the webinar. Let me also share the session PDF with you. Here's a session PDF so that you guys can download that. And again, if you can put those, put your comments in the short answer pod about the feedback on the webinar, that'd be really helpful. And everything in the next layer. Thank you, Shraddha. Perfect. Yeah, if you can get comments on the webinar, if you can rate the session, that'd be wonderful. And again, you have links to our success stories, our personalized study plan, and a bunch of other things as well. Okay. And if you still have any questions about your GMAT preparation, MBA application, I'd be happy to take on that question right now. Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you for that feedback. That's wonderful. Again, questions in the Q&A pod to the extreme left. Can we make a short video call? You can. That's where you click on get the personalized study plan. If there are open slots, then we can. Otherwise, you can write to me at rajat@e-gmat.com. And yeah. So again, typically put in the details so that we know what you want help with. That's something that is there. So you can write to me at. Okay. Where can we get a 3-month study preparation plan? You know, I can give you 1 3 months preparation plan, Diana, Diane, I guess that's what it is, Diane. But essentially, it may not apply to you. You know, at e-GMAT, we focus on personalized study plans. Let me actually share a video with you to really say how do you build one for yourself. I think that would definitely help you. Data 15,000 GMAT test takers in. Try this. Sorry about that. Watch this video and you'd see how to build a personalized study plan, and then yeah. And this is an example of one of many such videos that you see on our YouTube channel. All right. Okay, guys, with that, I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Shraddha and I had a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you in the number properties webinar tomorrow. Again, that's about 22 hours from now. Also, we'll be sharing the recording in about 12 hours. So, so just be on the lookout for our email. With that, thank you very much and have a wonderful day. Okay, Naga wants me to wait. Naga, again, you can, if you have a question, I'd be happy to address that. I still have about 5 minutes. All right, I don't see any other question over here. So at this point, I'll thank you and thank you very much. You will get the recording in an email, Sarthak. So yeah, definitely be on the lookout. You should have the recording in another 9 hours or so. And Naga Pavan, sentence correction will use grammar, but it'll be based on meaning. It'll use grammar. Of course, you need to know some grammar concepts, but it's not a test of grammar. It's a test of your ability to think logically. Okay. With that, I want to thank everyone for joining me today. Okay, I have a few questions. Do we help in applications? We don't. It's very simple because we specialize in what we do. Here's one of the other things that you really see. If you look on GMAT Club, look at the number of success stories. And what you're going to find is companies that do applications, they provide a tenth of account for a tenth of the 700 plus scores. 1/10, that is. Not 10%, but 1/10 of the 700 plus scores than companies who actually just focus on GMAT preparation. So that's kind of the thing, it's a specialized endeavor, and people who try and do everything, they don't get anywhere. I mean, I have seen companies that we're about a 45-person company. Each one of us works full time, and in this we could still use more people to do more in GMAT preparation. I've seen 4-person companies doing MBA application, GRE preparation, GMAT preparation all by themselves. I mean, I don't know how they do it, but I don't see the results. And when you think about this, it's not difficult to see why you don't see those results. The same thing happens with applications. I mean, there are companies that just do MBA application, and you'd see a lot more success. You'd see them deliver a lot more success than those who do both GMAT preparation and MBA application. It's just how the world works, specialization works, because both the application aspect as well as the GMAT aspect are extremely high performance endeavors. When you think about it, this is very different from a CFA exam or a CA exam, where you only have to go above a certain threshold, and everyone who goes above a certain threshold qualifies. This is frankly a zero-sum game where if tomorrow 10,000 more people started scoring above 730, then 730 won't have that value. So you need a very specialized approach over here. This is a lot more, this is very, very similar to kind of building the world's best athletes. And when you build the world's best athletes, you focus just on coaching them on technique, or you just focus just on nutrition, or you focus just on their personal lives. You try and do everything together. You're not going to be able to actually breed, and I use the word breed because this is what we literally do. We breed achievers. You won't be able to excel in any one thing, and it's going to hurt the individual who you're trying to help. So we don't help you with application, but we connect you with the best in the business. And when we do that, you actually get into top business schools, right? Because you get a top GMAT score, and you get a world-class application. And which is why our students come back and give back. You go to our YouTube channel, you see students people who were our students 3-4 years back, and they come back and they're willingly doing these webinars. McKinsey experts and McKinsey consultants and folks who are running their own companies and folks who've gotten full fellowships and all. They don't go back to any other company because they're proud of their legacy. Okay. With that, I want to thank everyone, and I wish to see you guys. I hope to see you guys on e-GMAT.com. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening, or a wonderful day if, like me and Shraddha, if you're in the US.